It just had one name on it. A man we were both very fond of. But tell us the background, because you were terrorizing all of media with this shitty men in media list, with the promise of publishing it. What happened?
So I was on the hunt. I found out what everybody listening and watching, and you and I know, of course, which is that male feminists are the biggest sexual predators because they're chameleons. They don't have any game. They don't have any vibe. They don't have any presence. They can't just go up to a woman and say, "Hey, I would like to hang out with you. Do you want to, hook up or something?"
This is right. Hey, I would like to hang out with you.
Right.
I don't think that's in your dating manuals. That's a somewhat diluted version of your previous advice.
We're on Act 3. We made that pivot a while ago.
I don't remember this from your early ebooks.
This is the sanitized version.
Hey, I'd like to hang out with you. Okay, got it. Good.
Yeah, people can definitely go figure out the undistilled version, but they don't have the integrity to just let a woman know that, she's a woman, he's a man, and they want to have some fun and enjoy themselves. So they go, "No, I'm actually the good guy. I'll protect you from people like Cernovich and those bad people who write blog posts and have sex. And those are the bad guys. Let me talk to you, cry on my shoulder. Tell me about your boyfriend who broke your heart," kind of thing. Right, so they're little chameleons that go undercover, and then they try to get these girls drunk, and then they pass out and they climb up on top of them. And so they're the biggest sexual predators.
This is the male feminist thing. This is what I said. We were talking to Gavin the other day at McInnes, and I said, somebody described himself as a male feminist. You can start the clock on the rape charge. Like this is an immutable truth, a law of the universe.
Right, because that's the only way they can get female attention.
Right, is to virtue signal.
I'm such a good boy, everything else.
I would never do that to you. I'm going to defend you against the mean misogynists on the internet.
Right, those guys are bad. So it turns out there's a lot of these so-called male feminists, like Joss Whedon got busted for, I'm a male feminist. This fucking guy would tell his wife, "Oh, baby, I got to counsel these women, all these mean Gamergate guys, these Gamergate guys are fucking with these poor women, baby. I'm going to go talk to them and counsel them and be friends with them." And the wife's like, "Yeah, you're a great feminist." And then she finds out later that a guy with a foot fetish is actually looking at all the girls' feet and everything like that. So Josh Whedon, I think, was one of the first ones. But there have been many of them outed. But there's never been and then, of course, we won't say his name to give him any kind of shine, but there's a guy from New York Mag who, things have been said about him that are indeed very kind of creepy. But, we don't want to give him more attention than he deserves.
We won't do so, but he's watching and he knows who he is.
Exactly.
and he knows the freight train is coming.
Exactly. Yeah, I haven't forgotten. That's what these people
That's something, you may win a temporary tweet storm, but we don't forget. And by the way, you're the bad guys, not us.
Yeah, I mean, what they have to realize is you guys are the bad guys. And I can't be publicly shamed. You can't be publicly shamed. "Oh, no, you're going to be fired from my job. Oh, no, you're going to call me a neo-Nazi, white supremacist, conspiracy theorist, rape apologist.
Pedophile apologist.
Yeah, pedophile apologist." What are you going to do? You're going to throw more shade. But those people, if people don't like them, then they can be outcast quite quickly. So this all segues, I guess, into shitty men in media list. So BuzzFeed posted an article that there was a Google form or a Google Doc going around where a bunch of female journalists were creating a list about men in journalism who were sexually harassing them, in some cases public masturbation, in other cases date rape allegations, and then other stuff with garden variety creepiness. And I think that's the problem with a lot of this stuff. A lot of these guys are just, they hover and linger. But that isn't really sexual harassment. They're just awkward, right?
It's like, we got to know the gamers through that particular controversy a couple of years ago now. And, some of these guys are very socially awkward.
Right.
Some of them are not confident with women.
Right.
But they're good, decent people. They're just, sometimes they're high up the spectrum or whatever. They may, I've seen them in bars approach women with awkwardness, but never with this sort of weird flesh-crawling creepiness of a BuzzFeed or a Mike or an Intercept blogger.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the gamers will come up to you. Not all of them, obviously, but they'll just kind of
like, "Hi, you're a really beautiful woman.
Good to meet you." Well, no, with men, though, they'll be like, "Milo, hi." They're like, "Hi, how you doing, bro?" Let's personal space.
Take it down a little bit and let's have a conversation.
Let's talk and relax. Yeah, okay, cool, man. But that isn't harassment. That's just social awkwardness. So a lot of the stuff cast as sexual harassment is really just guys being a little bit weird.
Because we are weird. Men are weird. Like,
Yeah.
men don't really know how to deal with women, especially after decades of feminism. You know?
Yeah, and nobody teaches you this. And then if anybody teaches you it, then they're like, oh, that's an MRA, PUA. It's like, well, wait a minute. You can go to acting class. You can go to marketing class. You can go to public speaking class.
Why can't you go to dating class?
Yeah, but if you go to that, you're some kind of like loser guy. And then they go, well, why are guys so socially awkward? Well, gee,
maybe because you completely stigmatize anything that would make them not awkward.
Right, exactly. So yeah, those are just the weirdos, but then you have the really creepy people on the shitty men in media list. So I said I have to get it.
Of course.
And I don't like to screw around, so I just said I'll pay $10,000 to the first person to send it to me, thinking that, you know, people would be beating down the door to get it. And actually, I didn't get it for a couple weeks. And when I received it, the journalist wouldn't accept money. So here's what's weird in the ironic position.
And it was a female journalist, presumably.
I don't want to say male or female, but the here's what surprised me about it and where I empathize with these women is the person who gave it to me said, the reason I'm giving it to you is because anybody who publishes this in journalism, their lives will be ruined.
Yes.
I want the list to get out, and I know that you're the guy who really essentially can't be shamed. And I thought, well, son of a bitch, like they kind of have a point about the structural biases, right?
Yeah.
They work in journalism, but they're afraid
to do journalism,
right? Because then they'll be punished. And I thought, well, yeah, sure, I'm just the guy for it. So then I of course looked for one name, you know, because there's somebody who 3 years ago wanted to become good friends with us, and he had ruined a lot of lives. He'd ruined Justine Sacco's life. He was used Gawker as a terrorist website to destroy lives for years. And, you know, he had tweeted about wanting to kill animals and all kinds of just really disturbing stuff. Tweeted about he wanted to bully people and shame people.
It was a kind of classic example of the social justice impulse of wanting other people to hurt as much as you're hurting. Right. And he's almost the best example I've ever seen of that. You know, somebody who is obviously messed up and wants other people to be in pain just as much. Yeah,
in that regard, you would have a little bit of empathy for him and think, when you watch
maybe once upon a time.
Yeah, well, I don't anymore. Yeah, the 3 or 4 years ago, but
particularly not because the website goes down. Praise Allah. Incidentally, just as a brief sidebar, we got booted from our previous studio. We're in a different studio now today, and I think that was that a call to prayer we just heard? Are they playing it to troll us? They're playing some sort of Islamic something in the background. It's like, we'll take your money and we'll let you rent the space, but we're gonna play the azan in the background.
Never a dull day.
New York is wonderful.
Yeah,
anyway, no, I mean he gets of course unceremoniously booted from the dying and poisonous Gawker and walks straight into a job with the next rich left-wing globalist at The Intercept.
Yeah,
amazing. Anyway, no sympathy there either.
Yeah, so the shitty men in media list has all kinds of accusations, and first they go, Cernovich doesn't have it. Right? There's always these like stages of grief for these people. Denial is one. Nobody likes Cernovich. Nobody actually gave him the list, and it's like, well, maybe you're right. They don't like me. That's why they gave me the list. Because if you hate me, give it to me and let me draw the fire.
Yeah,
that would be the whole point. They don't want to draw fire. I love it. And so I've been going through it, cataloging it, giving people time to respond. Unlike the nasty people who write about us, I won't publish these kind of accusations until I've emailed them, and I'll post their full reply. I won't even edit a sentence or anything.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
this is how journalism is supposed to
work.
Yeah,
so I'm emailing, men, name by name, and I'm asking them, and I'll give them, if they write a 500-word reply, I'll post that. If they do a lawsuit threat, I'll post the lawsuit threat. If the lawyers threaten me, I'll post that too. And the first.
So what can we expect going forward? Like to tantalize us, because I'm sitting there like pressing refresh on.
Well, I was gonna publish it all at once, and then a very smart person told me if you just publish everything all at once, then the really bad guys are gonna get lost in the shuffle.
And because you don't know when you publish it all at once who is guilty. Or I mean, if they're all guilty, who has done a lot more than is alleged in the document? You want to tease it out, treat each one like the Telegraph in London did the MP's expenses scandal. If you remember that, it didn't really make much of a splash over here, but it was a scandal about public servants who were abusing their expense accounts. In some cases, to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars a year. A Tory MP bought a duck pond on expenses, for his country estate. Labour MPs, unsurprisingly, overweight, Labour MPs were using their maximum food allowance. That was the funniest thing, because all of the fat MPs, it was like you couldn't make it up. It was so funny. They were all like using their maximum food allowance every day.
Right.
You know, it was so funny.
Caricatures.
Anyway, but they it was like a drip feed of poison, and every single MP in Westminster was terrified of getting a call at 9 p.m. because it meant that from the Daily Telegraph, because it meant you'd be in the next edition, and they teased it out for weeks. It was beautiful.
Yeah, so that's my strategy here. Is I have written up one, our good friend Sam. You know, I've written about Sam has not replied yet. I don't know why.
That's weird, because he's normally so responsive.
Yeah, I think that he should reply.
I mean, he tweets very readily. He's always. I mean, he's very very enthusiastic to get in touch for comment.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah. So if he does reply, I'll post the full thing. And if I get a lawsuit threat, I'll be sure to post that too. And
wonderful.
Yeah, I'm sure one of these guys.
Badge of honor being on the receiving end of a lawsuit from Pierre Omidyar.
Well, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be. I mean, if they backed him on that lawsuit threat, then it'd be discovery into everything. This is what these people like. I get lawsuit threats all the time, and my answer is good. I'll depose you about your sexual history, everybody you've ever dated, everybody. Sure, I would love to do that. You're going to sue me, right? They're always telling me, like that NFL player, for example, threatened to sue me years ago when I exposed him for, some bad things. And I was like, good, I'll be happy to get discovery in this case. What do you people think you're going to do? It's not my first rodeo. And that would be my answer to all these guys. It's great. We can do this litigation stuff. I'm not worried about it.
I'm experiencing the same joyfulness about my Simon & Schuster lawsuit.
Right.
Their motion to have it dismissed was tossed out. The judge, the judge is like, no, come on now. So we're advancing briskly to discovery, which they're not going to like very much. But no, it's a nice function of lawsuits. To talk about the list in particular, can you give us any upcoming names or any hints about publications or any little tidbits that might be on the way?
Mother Jones is definitely on there. Ooh. Mother Jones is my next one.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah, there's a fellow in Mother Jones, and I'm waiting for comment from him. Yeah, so I want to give these guys, a day or two to respond before I go forward with it. There's one I don't believe. And I'll tell you why, and then you can tell me your thinking. It's a very high-profile writer for The New Yorker, and they said that he has sent creepy DMs. Now, my thinking is, would you put that in writing if you're a major league writer at The New Yorker? I'm a little skeptical of that one. Yeah. That, to me, would be a little bit iffy. So this guy... Also,
the bar for assault, creepiness, and whatever from some of these feminist female journalists is going to be set extraordinarily low.
Yeah, I don't want to shame a guy who maybe just said, do you want to have drinks? And then somebody interprets that. Because I've said to female journalists before, like, hey, you want to have like a drink? Even though like I only drink at the hotel where cameras on me the whole time because I'm paranoid about everything. But maybe one of them goes, oh, what are you trying to, you invited me to your hotel? It's like, no, I invited you to a public bar where there were cameras. Right, so that you can't say anything, right? So for that guy, I think he'll get off the hook. But for the really, like, for example, one guy was accused of following a person in the bathroom, trying to masturbate in front of that person. That's, and that's specific enough. Stuff. And that's specific enough that it has what you would call an issue of reliability. That isn't the kind of thing that you just, like, if you don't
pluck that out of the air, right? And make it up about somebody.
Yeah, that isn't like you're creepy. Well, that could mean anything. No, he followed me into the bathroom and began masturbating. Okay, that's a credible accusation.
Or at least it's a concrete thing worthy of response. We're going to put this in context with Weinstein in a moment. But before we do that, let's talk about a delightful chap in the UK that we both had little run-ins with. A great name for him, by the way, Rupert Myers. Yes. Don't you love that? I wish I'd come up with that. It wasn't me.
I mean, we're in like such a golden era that I forgot about him already. And this is why I didn't release the full list. Yeah, that's why you can't release the full list, because I already forgot about Rupert Myers. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a sort of conceptual conflagration without any individual scalps. Right. It's like I have managed to persuade everybody that liberals are creepy scumbags and that male feminists are predators. Right. But I haven't actually got anyone fired. And it's like, well, and I am enjoying, as I've said previously, I didn't love the Laura Loomer interrupting the show thing. Well, let me rephrase that. I wouldn't do it personally because I think it's kind of off-brand for me. I wouldn't feel right doing it. But I loved the sight of it. It was delicious watching them get a taste of their own medicine. Cannot deny they have it coming. It falls into a similar bracket for me. It's just like, this has been going on for, half a century? The left on the right stuff.
Yeah, well, that's actually what, and that, like, because there are journalists that I have serious conversations with where I just don't troll them and tell them they're a cuck or whatever. And that's what I told
one or two.
Yeah, like 3, yeah. and this is what
Amanda Marcotte wrote to me for a comment, and I think I just said, "Fuck off, you ugly ginger cunt." And she wrote in her, he used a it was something like a gingerphobic or some ludicrous like this, and an epithet related to female gender. Yeah. Like, why don't you just say what I said?
People,
just say what I said. Say what I said, because it was. Anyway.
But that's the range. Like, that's what people don't realize. Like, you have range, I have range. On the one hand, I'm terribly ethically conflicted that all these men are being accused without due process of law. On the other hand, this is what they do for a living. Right?
Exactly. It's like, it puts us in a bind because we do have. See, they're doing it again. There aren't that many calls to prayer in an hour. On the one hand, we do have the moral high ground. We have the moral high ground by virtue of their own behavior for decades. But at the same time, it's just too delicious to sit back and ignore them being hung with their own rule book.
Especially because with Rupert Myers, a year ago, he had trolled me and called me a men's rights activist. First of all, I'm not. But if I were, oh no, you advocate for men. How dare you, right?
Yeah.
And then I texted you, and you go, oh yeah, like 5 people have told me sexual harassment stuff about him. So then I tweeted, Milo wants to know which of the 5
which of the 5 women you sexually assaulted he should interview first.
Yeah.
And he lost his shit.
Yeah.
He went completely bananas. Yeah. And of course, he wrote a very long profile about me, and he said something like, the basement-dwelling misogynists of the internet were given a voice by Milo. Well, that hasn't aged well, has it, Rupert? Because Rupert, this GQ author, barrister, is a barrister for goodness sake. Yeah. GQ author, contributor to the Guardian, of course. All the rest of it. Now we find out that he has been drunkenly lunging at women. And you know what? It sucks that he's lost his job as a result of allegations alone. And under ordinary circumstances, I would find that appalling. And I do find it appalling. It is terrible. But this is, as you say correctly, exactly what he does for a living, is smear and besmirch other people, call them names, and attempt to destroy their reputations on the basis of lies, conspiracy theories, supposition, or absolutely nothing at all.
Right.
Yeah,
because, we live in hookup culture. This is everybody's a degenerate. People go out to bars. I'm not saying sexually harass people, blah, 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 but if you want to get noticed, everybody's on their smartphone, so is he lunging at people, or is that just the culture? I don't know, but that's the culture he's called out. So God bless him. He's hoisted on his own petard.
Bless him.
I don't even know what that means, but I hear it a lot. Well, I know what it means, but I don't know the metaphor, like petard.
Oh, I think it's some kind. I don't know for sure. I'm speculating, but I have a feeling it's probably a fencing term, and it's something to do with somebody turning your sword on you. Like you get kind of like something like that. Maybe it's something like somebody turns your own sword on you, or something like. It's Alinsky. It's holding people to. It's forcing the enemy to play by their own rules, right? And finding them wanting. Let's put some of this in context. Harvey Weinstein, delicious. We're all enjoying the spectacle. But it is by no means the worst thing that's going to come out about Hollywood. I was stopped on the street the other day. I'm like, what do you think about Weinstein? I was like, what do I think about Weinstein? It's an inevitable, obvious thing to happen, but it is just the first shoe to drop in what will, I think, be an extinction-level event for Hollywood. And it's not about more women coming out, about more producers. It's about when this pivots to child abuse. Corey Feldman, who has indicated that he's prepared to finger, he's prepared to...
Unfortunately.
That's metaphoric language.
Yes. I disavow. I disavow that pun.
Let's start that again. Corey Feldman has indicated that he might name a prominent Hollywood mogul as an abuser of kids. I've noticed all these signs have come out in the press. Like his name just kept popping up as though he'd been quietly indicating to people, as is so often the case before somebody does something. They just sort of start seeding that they're going to say something with friends and associates and journalists, that he might be gearing up to violate whatever he signed and point the finger. And then suddenly he gets arrested on marijuana charges out of nowhere before a show. Like anyone gets arrested on marijuana charges and put it. And first of all, it was described as an unknown drug offense to suggest to people it was worse than it was. Right. People started nosing about, asking questions like, "Oh, well, it's just marijuana." And it's like, well, you arrested Corey Feldman on marijuana and put him in jail, really, in California, or whatever it was. You know, why? Right. Give me a timeline. You have some of the best instincts in the business. I think you and I both were on the money about the contours of Gamergate, you know, how long it was going to take for it to crest and all the rest of it. Give us a sense in your view of how this spectacular implosion, which is going to involve women, children, all this kind of stuff that people simply will not tolerate at all, is going to play out. We've already seen, for instance, last weekend, takings at the box office are nosediving, and it cannot be unconnected to what's happening with Weinstein. People are just not prepared to reward Hollywood in its entirety with their money, with what is a huge amount of money. You know how much it is to go to the theater these days? You know, you go to iPick or something, and
like
you want
to $15-$16 a ticket.
Yeah, it's crazy, and you have to drive, and you get food there and everything, and the whole thing is like ends up being like 50, 75 each. You know, it's a lot of money. It's a lot. And you can well, I mean, it's either a lap dance or you could just stay home and pay, you know, $13 on iTunes. It's a lot to ask of people these days. And suddenly the box office taking is just evaporating. Give us your prediction for how the next kind of year or two is going to play out.
So I think they gave Harvey Weinstein to the wolves because the pedophilia stuff was about to break. Mm-hmm. Because it's been proven now the media covered up for decades for Harvey Weinstein. Well, why now, right? So I think the pedophile stuff was about to break. Mm-hmm. They knew it, so they want to give...
So they threw him under the bus.
Yeah, Weinstein. The reason I know it was going to break is I had a very prominent child actor come to me and say, "I want to break this story with you." It's like, I'm going to do it with you. And I was super excited. I was like, let's do it. Mm-hmm. And then he goes, "Dude, I'm getting followed." Mm-hmm. And that's what happens. That's what people on the outside, they go, "Why don't you just say you got raped or you're going to let other kids get hurt?" Very easy to judge. Mm-hmm. But they tap their phones. They tap the phones of these victims, and then they find out if they're messaging people, and then they start following them and everything. So I would be shocked if we don't have a big pedophile scandal within 6 months.
I have been in touch with a very famous actor who used to be a child star, I had an experience very similar, which is, you know, he said, "I know that you saw some stuff and you weren't really sure about it." And I said, "Well, I didn't know. I knew that I didn't like it very much, and I moved out of Hollywood very quickly because I didn't want any part of whatever I thought I was, you know, seeing the first hints of. So I got out of there. I didn't. Anyway, he said, you know, this stuff. There's a lot more to it, and I'm ready to say something. And then one day I just stopped hearing from him, you know. And he's not in trouble. He's doing fine. Like I see him in the press and the rest of it. But then one day it was just like gone.
Right.
I suspect something similar happened. Right. Corey Feldman getting arrested for marijuana. It's just a warning, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
like a warning
to
shot.
Throw a guy in jail, a weed ticket. Who even gets weed tickets anymore? And that was the message they were sending: is that we'll frame you. Well, you know, we'll frame you for anything.
Yeah, we got you on dope, which you probably didn't even have on you, which means if we can get to the police in that way for that, we can just pay more and get them to do anything.
Yeah, I think they planted the drugs on him. Yeah. That's what they do is you pull them over for a traffic offense.
And just chuck it in the car.
We found a little baggie of weed, and then you arrest the guy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't add up. So I think the police have probably paid off and planted it.
Yeah. On Weinstein, 7 days in rehab, apparently now he's cured. My worry, and there's something in the back of my head that's going off, and maybe I'm being crazy, maybe he's completely beyond redemption, but there's something in the back of my head. It's just, every time we underestimate the shamelessness of liberals, we end up being wrong, you know? Something in the back of my head is suggesting that they might forgive him, that they might try to rehabilitate him, that they might say, they come out with some bullshit child, you know, like early life trauma or something, you know? Because the guy is, I mean, look, he's in there with every powerful Democrat you care to mention. I mean, the guy ran Hollywood, you know? You don't take out someone like that and offer him no path back to some kind of power, right? For me, it looks like, you know, America's just going to stop patronizing Hollywood entirely. And this is another really, like media, that's just going to continue to lose its power and influence over people as people start to realize how utterly ugly those pontificating at them from on high are. Do you think there's any truth to that? Like, you know, do you think they're going to try and save him?
Well, I'll remind people that I still am not afraid to say dodgy things, even though one day I may run for Congress. He's too ugly to be redeemed. Right? He's this big...
Too ugly to be redeemed.
Yeah, so somebody like Roman Polanski has a savoir-faire.
Woody Allen.
Good looking.
You know, they forgave Woody Allen.
They forgave Woody Allen. He's not. He's Harvey Weinstein. He is a meme of what a rapist in a dark alley looks like.
He's the stuff of rape nightmares.
Yeah, you put him in a hooded sweatshirt. He comes. I would be afraid of him if I'm walking down the street. We're in New York right now. That thing comes out of the alley. What is going on? So it's going to be hard to redeem somebody as horrendously ugly,
physically repellent as he is,
because you know that he did it. With somebody like that, I always say, just imagine him panting. Probably smells of garlic and vodka.
Well, it's actually just smelling of himself, because they get so hot and sweaty when they're that size. You know, the little reservoirs that collect in the folds.
Body hair and the sweat underneath.
There's no way that he can get down there to shave.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just flop around and some kind of jelly flops.
The whole thing is just this horrendous. Oh my goodness, it sounds absolutely awful. Let's talk a little bit about a subject that neither of us return to very often, but is sort of pertinent to this. I think it's a trigger for a lot of the fury and frustration of leftist journalism, the reason that they've kind of wandered into self-destruction, the reason for the Trump presidency and for the resurgence of people's mischief, and it's Gamergate. It's where we met. It's where we both kind of cut our chops in many respects. It was the first time, wasn't it, that a mass consumer movement, a huge number of actual people, turn them, flip the bird to the establishment. Do you share my view that the Trump presidency would be impossible without it, and that all of this stuff is effectively a cascade effect?
100%. In 2014, I wrote an article. In 2014, I wrote an article saying that Gamergate is the most significant cultural event of my lifetime. At the time, I would have been, 37. Because my own people were in like a mutiny. Mm-hmm. They're like, why are you writing about politics and culture? Just write about mindset and gym stuff and everything else. And I go, no, this is a once in a lifetime. Because at the time you were
writing about mindset, about working out, about masculinity, about dating and stuff like that.
Yeah, this was a once in a lifetime, a cultural event in our life. It was like the summer of love at that level of significance. Yeah. In the 60s, and I knew it. And the untold story of Gamergate to this day is that they were mostly a bunch of liberals. Like, yeah. That's the story that never gets told about Gamergate. The media goes, oh, it was a harassment movie, but like, no, I lived it. Mm-hmm. They're mostly a bunch of liberals, and that's when I realized,
libertarian, soft left.
Yeah, but they're sick of the bullying. They're sick of the great people like Oliver Campbell and others. They're sick of being used like the Not Your Shield hashtag. Like, hey, white people, quit talking for me. Mm-hmm. A black guy can talk for myself.
Yeah, and I don't agree with you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let us speak for ourselves, kind of thing, and. It also exposed how unethical and heinous journalism of these male feminists were, where they would fabricate stories about women who were pro-Gamergate. These male feminist journalists, some of whom were on this shitty men in media list.
This is what I was going to say. This is how I was going to reconnect to what we were saying. That some of the journalists involved in doing the worst stuff and behaving the worst have, of course, shown up in this latest shitty men in media debacle, and they're going to continue. It's going to continue. I mean, what struck me as remarkable was that we were the only people on our side in the profession, as it were, who got it. But everybody on the left understood how culturally significant this was. Everyone on the left knew how bad this was going to be for them, which is why they tried to write it off as an explosion of harassment. Because if they do that, then they don't have to address the underlying cultural questions. If they do that with each of the new victories or trouble spots, and they did it again with Trump. They turned it into male versus female. They turned it into Trump is a misogynist, a sexist, a racist. They turn it into a sort of circular discussion about bigotry, so they don't have to address the underlying seismic shift in culture and in mindset. And maybe this is why you've had an insight in this stuff, because this is what you kind of cut your teeth on as a writer.
Well, yeah, that's why people go, well, how did you know Trump was going to win before everybody else? And how did you know this? Well, you and Coulter and Adams, everybody else calling us, crazy. You don't know anything. Well, one is you and I, we went through Gamergate. We survived the public shamings. We knew every tactic the media was going to use. Okay, they're going to call you this, they're going to call you that. Don't apologize to them. ever. In fact, Vox Day wrote a great book, SJWs Always Lie. Unfortunate cover. I told him I wish he would change the cover, But
it was a great book. Actually, it's one of the very few books I read cover to cover and then still dip into, because he sort of took a 30,000-foot view of tactics, motivations, ideology, and it's a good little handbook for the trenches,
Yeah, and never apologize. Learn how they freeze you out, how they isolate a target, everything they use, and now actually, you and I have leveled up, and now we know their handbook, and we play the same games. That's why when people go, Cernovich is a right-wing SJW, I go, well, thank you.
What you mean to say is that I'm the right-wing equivalent of the movement that has dominated culture for 3 decades. Amazing. Well, thank you.
Yes. You can call me the new Gawker. I appreciate it.
No, I'm happy. I know Cernovich.com. It's great. Let's talk about I mentioned Trump a minute ago. There seems to be a schism between the early Trump true believers, people who are still on the train and supporting him despite all of the counterindications, let's say, and people who are like, okay, this is over, Uncle Steve's out, we got to make sure the movement survives Trump. Clearly the people who he has around him are a death knell for the presidency. Give us briefly your instinct about how bad things are at the moment in the Oval Office.
They're not bad. It appears that way because here's what I and others who have dealt with Trump, not that I've ever dealt with Trump, but hypothetically, if I've talked to people, Trump responds well to people being kind of an asshole to him. And the problem with the movement and the always Trump yes people is that doesn't work with Trump. You have to run game on Trump. You have to say, I don't know if I like you anymore. I don't know if I believe you anymore. I don't know if we can trust you anymore.
If you don't do the brinkmanship with him, he doesn't respect you.
Yeah, he views you just weak and he's going to steamroll you.
Right, so which is why I guess he holds Bannon in such high regard.
Loves Bannon. Allegedly, I don't know anything. I don't talk to anybody, but hypothetically, if I knew anybody.
My favorite thing about conversations with you is your fake disclaimers. I love
discreet.
them.
Nobody knows.
For the most gossipy man on the internet, you are remarkably discreet.
Yeah. My power is nobody really quite knows who I talk to, and I even tell the people I talk to, and this is why a lot of people talk to me, is I go, look, I'm okay with being the mistress. I don't need to name drop you, and get the pictures and everything.
I don't need a picture with you, and you don't need to acknowledge me. Just tell me what I want to know.
Exactly. So what we've learned is that you got to run game on Trump. You got to run hard game. So people go, Cernovich, you're off the Trump train one day, you're on it the next. I'm like, yeah, that's called running game. You have to remind him, because he doesn't respect weakness, he respects strength. Yeah. So when people go, we
all did this with on a number of occasions. I mean, the Syrian airstrikes, we did it. Whereas the MF wall, Anne's been doing it. You see, she instinctively understands this because she's one of the best. She's one of the best
beautiful woman,
natural fighters.
Yeah, a beautiful. Nobody understands men more than a beautiful woman.
True, and she, the best thing on Twitter is this recitative that she does, this kind of like number of miles built today, like next update tomorrow, and it must be absolutely brutalizing for anyone in the administration to have this, the queen of the conservative movement, 1.5 million followers on Twitter, saying, how much of the wall you built today? How much of the wall you built today? How much of the wall have you built today? It's absolutely devastating. But yeah, no, I see. So
and I even did a podcast actually. Remember when Trump went to the Arizona rally and said, Antifa, but he mispronounced it, like he
Antifa,
just heard the word. Antifa, right? Well, a couple days before that, I did a whole Periscope where I go, let's just be honest, Trump doesn't care if his supporters are beat up by Antifa. He just doesn't care about you. If you wear a Trump hat, and people were like, it was like a mutiny at first, and then people go, well, actually, you have a good point.
He hasn't called it out.
And then 3 days later, he calls it out, and smart people were able to put 2 and 2 together. People who aren't smart just view me as ranting aimlessly into the void. Other people see cause and effect.
And I think this is what, the sort of the Baked Alaska squad on Twitter, which kind of will hound you after every tweet, is an example of the sort of easily led, I think a lot of them are just young. I think a lot of them are 17 years old, and they want something to believe in, they want heroes, but they also want sort of security and stability and a constant, they want a weather vane. And you and I, actually no, that's not right. They want to line in the sand. They want a clear direction. You and I are weather vanes. We change direction. Sometimes for strategic reasons, and sometimes because our opinions shift on the receipt of new evidence. And that can sometimes be difficult for the most rabid fans to deal with. Like the young true believers.
Well, and I tell my people constantly, I'm like, look, I'm running game on all of you. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean you're running game? I'm like, well, that isn't a negative connotation, but it just means persuasion, seduction, they're all related to each other.
This is nice, you see, because you're the only other person in media, this is maybe where we get on so well, the only other person in media who will tell the people they love how you're going to fuck even them, and then do it, and then hope afterwards that they see what was going on, and by and large they do.
The ones you want around do. That's the whole point. The people that
the
you
general
want
trajectory has to be growth, and if
Right.
there's some attrition of the people who were never really on it because they were just sort of, they're kind of like selective cheerleaders, then who cares? You know?
And they're usually deadbeats anyway. And then they get triggered. They go, Cernovich, all you care about money. I'm like, well, if you're never going to buy a book from me, I'm okay if you never read me again. If you can't buy a $9.99 book, peace out, bro.
We're the closest thing to Margaret Thatcher, that sort of, if you're still catching public transport after 30 as a man, you failed at life,
Well, I wouldn't say they failed. I would just say that those people, I mean, they're the Bill Mitchells of the world willing to give them generic slop. Here's your grits today. Trump is amazing. Oh my God, what Trump did, never seen anything like it. Great. You can get your generic grits from the Bill Mitchell Cafe. If you want something a little bit more elegant, a little more nuanced, a little more complicated, then, come to Milo, come to Cernovich, Gavin McInnes, Stephen Molyneux, Paul Joseph. And another thing, too, is the people who have the biggest platforms are the ones who call out Trump the most.
Yeah.
Coulter, Watson, Molyneux, you, me, right? We're always there.
Yeah, and I think it's an example. We have been on this sort of free speech, anti-political correctness, anti-homogenous opinion making train more and before we were on the Trump train. So it stands to reason that we would be iconoclastic and we would practice what we preach, which is that we're not just going to sign up to. I'm not going to attach my credibility. To somebody else. He can attach his credibility to me. It's like if I go off you, I go off you, And having more complex and nuanced views is precisely what we were talking about in Gamergate. It's precisely what we've always advocated for when we've been against this sort of the enforcement of groupthink, whether it's in feminism or whatever. So it stands to reason to me. Now you, having said all of that, are as much a sort of, I think, a political operative as you are a journalist. Except you're sort of a political operative for yourself and for your own views and opinions and priorities. You're starting a new thing. It's called Rev 18. Tell us briefly what it is and what it's for.
Gotcha. So Rev 18 is bridging the gap between Twitter, media, and real life. So here's what I learned.
That sounds terrifying.
It does, right? Here's what I learned through your events, through my events, through hashtags. And this is something celebrities already knew, which is interesting that a lot of what we're doing are things like celebrity knows. So if Dana White wanted to give out tickets, Dana White's a genius. I followed his stuff with interest, and a lot of what I do in politics I learned from him. And if you want, to give out 2 tickets, you say, okay, I'm going to be in Vegas over by the MGM Grand, front door, come get your tickets. And you post it on Twitter, and people are running to get the tickets, right? And you realize, okay, there is no Twitter. No, it's all connected. Everything is connected. So how do you get people from Twitter into real life? Well, celebrities figure that out. Shaq would go, I got 2 tickets. Come get it. People are running down the street, right? Everybody's there all the time. But nobody's ever done that to politics. Nobody's ever said, hey, we got a guy running for office that we love. Is there anybody in his city? Why don't you go do some work? Or why don't you knock on doors? Or why don't you do that? So that's bridging the gap between Twitter and real life, and there's no super PAC that has those abilities. All they can do are buy ads. I can bring bodies. I can sell tickets. I can pack events. That's what we want to do is say, oh, we're not going to just do an ad buy.
The last subject I want to talk to you about is something that you and I were both on the forefront of, along with a lot of other of the libertarian and conservative political activists and journalists and social media people. Hillary's health was the subject of the most scoffing and kind of eye rolling from the establishment media. And then what happens this week? She broke her foot. She broke her foot in London, and it's like I imagine her as the Chaplin brothers, or it's like some kind of slapstick circus around Hillary and her retinue of 50 medical advisors or whatever. She says she was running down the stairs backwards with a cup of coffee in her hand.
Yeah,
I can see the silent movie with the frantic piano she shows up on British TV. Imagine it, right? No show for the radio, no show for a TV show, and then she finally appears on Graham Norton because it has the biggest audience. She'll go, and she's in crutches in a foot cast, and she's like, "Oh, I tripped over with whatever." Still has the audacity to start, throwing out whatever about Trump. Isn't this a perfect emblem for everything we went through in the last election. And since. This, we were scoffed at, we were laughed at, all the rest of it. And we were saying, look, she looks like she has Parkinson's. I mean, she looks like she's sick. She looks like she's ill. And what about this and this and this and this? And everyone's, oh, no, it's ridiculous. She's falling to bits.
Yeah. The media, I remember, they said, quit talking about Hillary's health. And then she had that episode on 9/11, and then they go, oh, well, now we can talk about it.
Because we can't avoid talking about it because she fell into a van.
And the only reason...
wasn't she overheated? She was overheated, and it was like a balmy, crisp, spring day.
70 degrees. Well, and that's when I started fact-checking the media, is when she had her coughing fit, she said it was allergies. So then I actually went through the city she was at and went to allergy.com or whatever. And I go, the pollen count was like normal, you fuckers. Do some research. You don't just repeat what they tell you, right?
If Trump had coughed and said it was an allergy, you better believe there'd be 50 or 100 journalists checking what fields he was near.
Exactly.
You know?
And that's what I did, and there was nothing there. And we always have to remember, the only reason we know she fell down on 9/11 is because a citizen journalist caught that, or we never would have known.
And you've been at the forefront of this stuff. Yeah. Who knows what we didn't see?
Exactly.
What they have, and they didn't know, and they didn't publish.
Right. So her broken toe is consistent with Parkinson's, because when people think of Parkinson's, it's way worse than anybody imagines.
Because they think of just the dodderiness.
Yeah, they think, oh, you shake a little bit. No. I mean, your whole body locks up, your throat locks up. People are walking, you're just walking normally, and then you freeze up, which is what happens to Hillary Clinton. Your body locks. And that's probably how she broke her foot, is she was walking downstairs and her body locked. And then because of that, she fell. And then, of course, they try to concoct a story. So
this is why you so often see her going up the stairs with people on either arm, because they they almost have to like lever her up the steps because her body's not moving anymore. Right.
And if she does lock up, she just smashes her face, right? So that's
of course,
the thing.
Because it's one of those diseases where you lose the motor control, right? So if the body locks or partially locks, you're like watching the floor come at you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly. Yeah. So as much as I like to make fun of Hillary, that's like the one thing I wouldn't wish on her, because Parkinson's truly is a horrific thing. But the media told us we can't talk about it. It's a lie, and I've said,
remember that HuffPost thing? I mean, people forget about this. This guy got his whole archive nuked because he posted a thing that. This is actually the state of the media, right? And they've got worse, not better, since the election. Here is something that everybody is talking about, something for which there is mountains of evidence, something that everyone is concerned about, something that is grossly pertinent to the future of the nation, but you can't talk about it because if you do, you're like somehow betraying the cause or something. And this is journalism now.
Yeah, gaslighting us into believing things that aren't true. Everything they accuse us of, they do. Hillary Clinton is healthy. Harvey Weinstein's a great man. Hollywood is our moral conscience. Jimmy Kimmel's our moral conscience. Oh, but he won't say anything about Harvey Weinstein.
No, because he's not. What was that stupid excuse why he wouldn't do that? And SNL. Do you remember that? Like, it won't do it because he's a New Yorker. But you were perfectly happy to do it about, wait a minute, Donald Trump, who's from Queens.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
And that's why they're losing, and that's why they hate social media and want to regulate and ban us so much, is because if we didn't exist, they would get away with it. You think of Nassim Taleb had a great quote, which is, or him, or maybe one of these other like great accounts, which is, if the news is fake, imagine the history. Yeah. Right. So you and I, who do
books
believe,
written by academics who don't have social media checking the pages of their and we know how Marxist historians are in the best universities.
Right.
Yeah.
So you and I, it's ironic. You and I, who have more of a Christian belief in the world in terms of there is objective reality, we're deconstructing everything that the postmodernists have created, which is fake. So we're in this weird world now where you and I are using postmodernist methods
to unpick postmodernism.
Right. Even though we believe in objective truth.
And that is where we should end it, on that horrifying, death-defying vertigo of, if you think the media is bad, just imagine how bad the history books are. And nobody's even looking at that yet. Nobody's even considering how astonishing. I mean, we know from gender studies departments, from everything that I do on college campuses, what you do on media, we know how bad the superficial stuff is. The gender studies, which ultimately doesn't matter to anybody, except it's driving men and women apart and the rest of it. But these Eric Hobsbawm, these venerated Marxist historians who are literally writing the history books about what happened and what did not happen. Terrifying. The subject, perhaps, of a future conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been fascinating and good fun, as always. Mike Cernovich.